everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of this podcast. I'm currently filming an episode a week, and I am really liking the structure to it. It really forces me to evaluate every single week of the year, and I've just been enjoying that a lot. And I just want to thank everyone who has been coming along and who has been commenting as well. Having said that, I am wearing one of my knitted sweaters. This is actually the one that I have used the least, but was, I guess, the most difficult one, or the one that seems the most intricate. So this is Augustins #1 from Augustins, and I knit this, I think, back in 2021. I did some modifications, especially on the wrists here. I added the lace detailing that was on the chest. I added it here to the arm, and then put the I-cord through that, and I removed the ruffles here, and I don't know if you can see it all that well, I heavily increased the ruffles here at the bottom to give the sweater a bit more volume. So one of the reasons as to why I don't wear it all that much is, first and foremost, I don't know exactly how to really style this sweater. I have worn it now with jeans, but I'm not really feeling that look, and so I think I am going to modify this sweater. I believe I had wanted to make this into a dress in the first place, and then at some point I was like, oh, this is going to take me ages to finish, because I was increasing heavily, and so each row took way longer than the previous one, and yeah, I just bound off. But now I feel like I should actually just take out this I-cord edging and then start knitting again until it's actually a dress. I still have the yarn for it. I have about 100 grams or maybe 75 grams caked up already with because it's a mohair and wool blend. So I had, I think, one strand of wool and then one strand of mohair together. So I have one cake of that, and then I still have some leftover wool. I'm not too sure if I still have some of the mohair, not here with me at home, but I have to check at my parents' place. But yeah, I do think that that's something I would like to do this year. And also, this is the first thing that I ever seamed, like knitwear or just in general, and so it's not done that neatly, especially at the panels. You can see where I attached the yarn, because basically you knit down and then you fold it and hem this. I guess you hem it so that an I-cord can go through here. So yeah, that's something I would like to address about this sweater, because also before like I think about before 2 months ago, I think I wore this sweater even less because the arms were too short. But I mean, if you've been watching the podcast, you know that I ended up really aggressively blocking it, and now it's actually at my desired length. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed knitting this sweater. There are, I think, about 2 or 3 more pieces of Augustins that I would like to knit. Some are in Danish, so I would have to buy the Danish book that she released with some patterns that are exclusive to that book. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna do that, but I've always really wanted a lot of knitted dresses, but there weren't many that were really to my liking, and I just really love the romantic style that Augustins has. Yes, so that's all about that's all about my thoughts on this sweater. So let's get into the things that I actually knit this past week. I finished the bonnet that I had been working. Ooh, this looks so good on camera. Wow. Okay, so ta-da! Here it is. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. This makes me so so happy. So, yes, as I was saying, I finished the bonnet that I had started in the last episode. So this is actually based on a vintage a vintage pattern. I got this pattern for free actually on freevintageknitting.com, and I used drops Nepal that I had in stash. So this is a yarn that is 65% wool and then 35% alpaca, and its yardage is 75 meters per 50 grams. I used two colors, marine blue, which is color code 1709, and nature, which is 0100. Yes, and then in terms of needles, I used 4.5mm for the blue parts, and then for the color work I went 2 needle sizes up, 5.5, so that's 5.5mm. Yeah, so the original pattern is called Norwegian Baby Cap, and yes, it's a free vintage pattern. I'll leave a link in the description box below. As for the construction, I made some adjustments, so I'll talk about that first. But the original pattern tells you to cast on, I believe, 85 stitches, then knit a couple of rows in your main color, and then do create a picot edge. So that's basically just knitting 2 together, yarning over, knitting 2 together, yarning over, and then knitting a couple of rows of the main color again. And then you do the color work here, and you basically do the color work all the way down here. So you have just a strip of color work that goes around your head. So I believe the pattern tells you to, once you start knitting for the back side here, they tell you to cast off the stitches here and then knit a straight strip up, and then you seam everything together. So yeah, that's the original construction. I first started with just a picot rib cast on, which I spoke, I believe, about in the last episode, and then I did the color work, etc, etc. And then when I got to the part where you have to knit, where you have to cast off here and then knit this section, I decided to do like a turn the heel type of construction. So I started off with basically, I guess, what you would call a Dutch heel. So I would knit across, and then I would knit at the edge. So wait, let me start over. I think, I don't know how many stitches. I had 28 stitches here, and so I'd knit across, and then I would knit 28 stitches, and then knit 27 stitches, and then knit 2 stitches on the side here together, creating basically doing the same thing that you do with a French heel, but then keeping the stitches in the center even. So I did that for a while. I think you can see it here. At the top is pretty straight. It doesn't increase at all. And then I realized that the amount of rows on this side was not equal to the amount of stitches on the side. So I had to switch from a Dutch heel to a French heel, and basically that meant knitting 1 extra stitch and then doing the knitting 2 together, and then turning and going the other way around. And so I needed to add some patterning, because I needed still more rows here in order to knit together all the stitches on this side. And so I just went on Pinterest and I looked for some interesting, I don't know, color work, edging, or just some interesting color work, and I found this pattern, so I added a row of this. And then once that was done, I just did an I-cord edge, and then I knit that. So I did an I-cord, and then I did the edging all around, and then I did the I-cord here again. And yes, once I finished that, I saw that when I put the cap on, I would see the color work. And that was basically because the picot edge was rolling a bit. So what I ended up doing was taking out the picot cast on, and then I knit a picot edge, so that there was, so I just knit, I think, about 3 extra rows here, did the picot edge, and then knit maybe 5 more rows, and then I sewed it down. And yeah, this is how it also looks on the inside. I didn't catch any of my floats because the color work was just so, I mean, like there weren't, whoa, that was a word salad. There weren't any long floats, so I didn't need to catch anything. So yeah, this is how it looks. Oh, also another modification that I did is I added extra rows here on the sides because, like I've said before, I need extra length on the back of my head to fit in all of my hair. Let me just show you how it looks. Oh shoot. Oh, I didn't do it. What am I doing? Okay, well, it looks like it looks like it's fine now. So this is how it looks. Let me just show you the back as well. I don't know if my edges are rough here, probably. I think I forgot to comb them today. Yeah, so that's how it's looking. I would like to make some adjustments. I think I'm definitely going to re-knit this. I was thinking of just doing a tutorial to show you how to do this, as well as how to adjust the adjust the length around here, but also in terms of length here at the back for your hair, because I would like this section to be a bit higher. And then what else? Oh yeah, adjust here for the back of your head if you need more or less space than I do. So that's something that I am working on right now. I would also like to rewrite the pattern both for inches and centimeters, and basically just modernize the pattern, because I think it would be a very good exercise for me as well to learn how to write patterns and get a better understanding of designing. So instead of starting from scratch, I have something already and I can tweak things and just make also the pattern more accessible to people. So yeah, I thought this was a really fun and cute project. Also really fast to knit up. I think it took me about 1.5 days, but I think you could also just knit this in one day, like in your weekend, if you just want to, I don't know, watch a TV series. So I think for myself, again, what I would like to adjust is, yeah, I would like more length here at the bottom and more length here at the side to make the ribbon a bit more comfortable. It's not uncomfortable, but I'd like it to be more comfortable. Yeah, and what else? I would like this to be, this part to be a bit higher, just like in the original pattern. So I was actually thinking of once I have finished like the initial rows of the color work, that instead of just leaving all the live stitches there, I decrease about 5 or 6 stitches so that it meets up nicely. So that's something that I've been thinking about. So that is definitely one thing that I'm going to be working on coming week. Also, I did film a vlog making this as well, so I will try to upload that as well. Yeah, so searching up bonnets or pixie hoods, vintage hoods on Etsy and Google is how I managed to find this website. And I do have to say, this website is, I'm talking about freevintage.knitting.com. It's an excellent resource. There's also this counterpart website called, I believe, Free Vintage Crochet as well, for anyone who might be interested in crochet. So I kind of like went into a hole in terms of vintage patterns. I have really been enjoying just reading through patterns and understanding the construction, and also rewriting them so I can knit them myself. So that's a really fun addition to knitting this year for me. I think this is also, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, I think it's just a great way for me to prepare myself for knitting some vintage Japanese patterns. So that's awesome. Yes, I would like to move on to the next item. And this is again a free pattern from freevintageknitting.com. It's called the Easy Cable Vest pattern. And actually this vest doesn't really look all that much like the original at the moment. So this is what I have at the moment. So to give you some information, again, I'm using Drops Nepal from my stash, 65% wool, 35% alpaca wool, yardage 75 meters per 50 grams. This is in the color brown, number 0612, and again I used 4.5 millimeter needles, and I also used 4 millimeter needles for the ribbing down below. Yes, I'll leave a link to the pattern in the description box below. The construction is, you start off with ribbing at the back, you work up, you increase a bit, and then you start working the armholes, you decrease, you go straight up, and then you cast off. And then you do the front, so you do the 2 front panels separately mirrored, you cast on again, do some 1 by 1 rib, and then you follow this cable pattern. I actually didn't follow that specific cable pattern. I did a horseshoe cable, a 12 stitch horseshoe cable, and you then increase as well at the arm, and then at the armhole edge, and then you decrease for the armhole, and then at the same time as you're decreasing at some point, you start decreasing at the neck edge, and so that gives you like a slight V shape edge, as you can see here. I'll give you some up close visuals here. Here's the cable. Ooh. Here's the cable that I did. I have blocked these, not all that well to be honest, but just enough for, yeah, just enough to be honest. And I did do some seaming. Now that I'm looking in the camera, I'm like, oof, that's not the best seaming, but usually I don't seam, and this is something I did want to learn as a skill this year, so vintage patterns are also great for that. Also, they like seaming flat, knitting flat and then seaming adds more structure to your clothes, so there's a less chance of them losing their shape. But maybe I should talk about the modifications that I made to this vest before I get really into the nitty gritty. By this time, at this point, I should have shown the picture, the original picture, and so you might have noticed that the gauge is way smaller. No, yeah, wait. No, so the yarn is way thicker in the original. I believe that they gave the gauge 3 stitches per 1 inch, which calculates to 12 stitches per 4 inches, so 12 stitches per 10 centimeters. And I have, this is an Aran weight yarn, so I have a gauge of 17 stitches per 10 centimeters. So before I even started this, I rewrote the entire pattern to actually fit my needs for the, like, just adjusted it for the yarn, which was really fun. I love doing these conversion calculations. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, so, and then also I changed the cabling again. Like I said, this is a horseshoe cable. And what else did I change? So yeah, I have so in the pattern you do the button band, I think you crochet it. You crochet the button band and you also crochet the armhole. So I was actually thinking to do an I-cord edge for the armhole and then do a double-sided, what's it called? Like a double edge? No, a double button band, I guess. That's what I have decided to do. So I've actually never done that before, so I did knit a tiny swatch to see which needle size I would need, and I believe going down a needle size from 4.5 to 4 millimeters would do the trick. So yes, I think that's everything in terms of modifications that I did. It's almost like an entirely new sweater. So yeah, going back to the seaming, I found this really helpful video on how to seam a 1x1 rib. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below, but I tried to pay as much attention as I could to the seaming of the 1x1, and actually this is where I did the seaming together. So I did a selvage edge for both sides and then I seamed those together, so that gave this very thick seam on the inside. I did mess up somewhere. It was basically the arms at the front panel and the back panel should have had the same amount of stitches, so I would have been able to seam this up with no issue, but I ran into a bit of a problem when I got to the top here, that I had way more of the back left than I had of the front right panel, so I had to rip all the way down and try and see if I could reseam it to make it a bit nicer. And I tried my best, but I mean, you can see here's where the seam runs, and you can see a bump here, and I think you can see this bump here, and that's where I ran into a bit of issues. But for the rest, I think I did a pretty good job for... I think this is the first time I actually really seamed a garment piece together. I think it went quite well, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. So I definitely am not apprehensive to knitting things flat and seaming, and I think that really will benefit me in the future when it comes to the structural integrity of my knits. Oh, I did do another modification here up top. So, like I said, for the back shaping, they asked, or the pattern says that you cast off and then you knit again and then you cast off, and so that creates this like staircase feature at the back, and then you end up seaming it. But I didn't want that, and a couple of months ago I saw this video from Roxanne Richardson. I'll leave a link to that in the description box below. I saw a video of her how to, instead of doing that cast on thing, how you could replace that with doing short rows. So I did some Japanese short rows here, and I have been having issues with my Japanese short rows because at the back there's always quite a lot of fabric, because basically how a Japanese short row works is that you knit to the section that you want your short row, and then you turn your work and you make a loop, kind of like a loop around your right hand needle, and then you skip the stitch where you turned, and then you knit, and then you come back and you resolve that loop by knitting it together with the stitch that comes after the stitch where you turned at. I hope that makes any sense. But yeah, so that's basically what you do. But at the back I'd always have some extra stitch, it was a bit loose, so instead of doing the loop I actually skipped doing the loop and just basically knit to the place of the short row, turned around, slipped the stitch, and then knit all the way back. And then I did like a fiddly type of way where I tried to try to create that loop, the original loop, and then do the Japanese short row. And it sounds a bit weird, but it did help me a lot in terms of ensuring that there was less fabric at the back. And so what that left me with in the end was back shaping with live stitches on the entire side. And I did some miscalculations. Well, not miscalculations. I don't know, I just made a mistake. And what happened was that I ended up casting off 10 or 11 stitches at the front panel, which should have been like live stitches, which I would then use a 3 needle bind off to seam this together. I don't know what I was thinking, but I did do it for the first 10 stitches, and this is how it looks like. I thought it would be cute to have just a straight line here of stitches. So since I did make this mistake, I am going to have to take this one out eventually. Well, I'll do that soon, and then I'll redo the 3 needle bind off so that this is like this. And yeah, so hopefully this will be finished soon. Yes. Is there anything else that I wanted to say about this? I do have to say, when it comes to vintage knitting of garments, I am very lucky because I don't know, I think it's a 33-inch bust. My bust is 83 centimeters, so I haven't come across a pattern that I didn't have to grade first in order to actually fit it, and that really saves a lot of time. However, I do want to take this pattern and try and grade it myself. I think it would be a very valuable experience. So once I finish this, I have been writing a pattern for this, and I would like to do a full video tutorial for this. Well, I don't know about that, but I'm gonna try and do that, and then yeah, and try and grade it. So I will talk about that later on in the podcast episode, but I think that's it for this vest. now we are moving on to a new project. I think I have mentioned this last episode. My boyfriend would like to have more sweaters in his wardrobe, and so I offered to knit him 3 sweaters, which is quite the task, but I am very determined to do it. So he actually bought the yarn himself, and we spend a lot of time looking for patterns. And so basically how I'm going to do this is he'll buy the yarn. Well, we'll look for the pattern, which we found all the patterns at this point. He'll buy the yarn for one, I'll finish it, and then he'll buy the next batch of yarn and I'll finish it. So that's how it's going to go. So the first sweater that he chose was the Midvinter Sweater, and this is actually a free pattern from the Swedish yarn company Järbo. So this was designed by Stino Hulgaard Johansson. I'm having a hard time pronouncing that because I don't know if she's Swedish or Danish. But yes, it's the Midwinter Sweater. And there's also actually a women's version of this. So the construction, why am I holding the swatch already? But the construction is top down. So you knit in the round the neck, and then you start knitting the saddle. It's a saddle shoulder construction. So you knit the section for the shoulder here and also here, and then you start by picking up the stitches at the sides of the saddle piece, and then you have all the stitches at the back, pick up here on the side, then knit down. You do some short row shaping there as well, then you knit the front, and then I believe you do connect, then you knit all the way down, and then you pick up the sleeves and then you knit those. So that's the construction. So the yarn I'm using is actually the suggested yarn. It is obviously from Järbo. So this is Järbo Svensk Ull, which translates to Swedish yarn. They have a number of versions of this yarn with different yardages. So here are the colors. So yeah, it is 100% wool. It's a worsted weight yarn, 90 meters per 50 grams. And the colors that I am using, I have no idea which colors I'm using. Yeah, so the colors, this is the color Bergslagen, dog blue. Yeah, that's this color. And then this is Dala blue. Yes, so this is the main color, this is the contrast color. And also I forgot to mention, yeah, the sweater is knit in this lice. It is a bit see-through here, but it's knit in this lice pattern, and I did a swatch already for it. I used the recommended needle size, 4mm, but my gauge is way off. It's way too big. Yeah, it's way too big. I think I had about 18 stitches and 20 rows, and it's supposed to be 20 stitches and 22 rows. And so so mine was 18 stitches and 20 rows, and the gauge was 20 stitches and 30 rows. So I'm gonna try and go 2 needle sizes down for this. And what I mostly do, if not always, before I actually start a pattern is I will read through it just to see what's going on. And so while I'm doing that, sometimes I'll try and draw what they're like trying to explain, because when I first started doing this, I was so confused at how things worked. But now that I am becoming a more experienced knitter, it's more easier for me to understand things. But yes, I read through the pattern, and as I was reading through this pattern, also it is in English. They have, which languages do they have it in? English, Swedish, Danish, Finnish, and Norwegian. So I chose the English one just for simplicity. And I was reading through it, and I understood the neck, the shoulders, and then it came to the short rows at the back. And the type of short rows that is used is the wrap and turn, which I haven't done before. But there was something very strange about this, because it essentially said knit until you have, I don't know, like 10 remaining stitches remaining. Turn, then purl the remaining 10 stitches, which makes no sense, because if you're turning your work, you're knitting the opposite side, so there's no 10 stitches, there are way more, and you still have the 10 stitches there. And so I was really confused about that. I didn't understand what was going on, and so I checked out that video of Very Pink Knits about wrap and turn short rows, and it still did not make any sense. And so I was thinking, maybe this is just a pattern mistake, maybe this is a translation mistake. And so I downloaded the Swedish pattern, and lo and behold, it says knit until you have 10 stitches left, do the wrap and turn, and then purl the other way until you have 10 stitches remaining there. And so I was like, okay, so there are some mistakes in this pattern. Also, there's no pattern support since it is from a yarn company and it is for free, so there's not really anyone you can ask. And I checked on Ravelry, no one has knit this, not in Swedish, not in English, so there's no one I've been able to turn to. And yeah, so that was the first thing that I noticed. And then you knit the back, and then I started reading for the front section. And so it starts off again, the English pattern starts off with pick up stitches from the back panel and then knit the back. And I thought that doesn't make any sense at all, because I should have already knit the back at this point. And so again, I checked the Swedish pattern, and it said what is it, mitt fram, or knit the mid front section. And so I've noticed that it's full of mistakes, so I've now decided to just look both at the Swedish and English pattern and see if there are any more translation mistakes. I did also check a Dutch pattern for Christmas socks, I believe. I checked that one out, and I was reading through it, and again I saw that the Dutch wasn't even Dutching. There was so many grammatical mistakes in there. So Järbo is definitely I guess a pattern provider where I am going to have to do multiple double takes to ensure that what is in the pattern actually makes sense. I have actually in the past knit one of their patterns, free patterns. It's the Ladegård socks, the barn socks that I knit for my boyfriend, and that was a very enjoyable experience. I didn't notice any mistakes, so this is quite disappointing, but I am not deterred. I am still going to try and do this. So that's that, I think, for this pattern. I just need to knit another swatch, this time in 3mm, and then I can hopefully start the sweater. Okay, so I finished editing episode 24 yesterday and I uploaded it, and there's this one section where I speak about the floral crochet motif pullover by Daruma, and I said that I was probably only going to make it towards the end of the year because I wasn't planning on buying any yarn anytime soon. But since my boyfriend was buying some, I did end up buying some yarn for the pattern. So yes, this is the floral crochet motif pullover by Daruma. I am gimmicking my way through it. It is not a pattern that you can buy online. You actually have to buy the whole kit and then have it shipped from Japan to wherever you may live. And I thought that was gonna be really expensive, and also because it's a limited drop, I did not have the money to buy that pattern and the yarn at the same time and have it shipped before I think like mid-March or something. So I decided for a cheaper option, and that was just inspecting every single picture of the garment and just reverse engineering it, which was also a very fun and helpful thing for me to do because I learned a lot. Yeah, so I decided to find a yarn substitute that I think would do the trick. So the recommended yarn of the pattern was one of their yarns. It had a yardage, it was wool, I believe, and it had a yardage of 110 meters per 50 grams, and that's also the yardage of this yarn. This is Viking's Eco Highland wool. It's 100% wool. I don't think superwash. I'll have to check that. But yeah, the colors are Nature 202 and Marine 226. And then I've been using a 4.5mm crochet hook. I started this project today and I just want to finish it in the next coming days, because also I think I said that in the podcast episode that if I would have the yarn I would immediately make it, also because it's crochet and I've heard that goes very fast, and it's granny squares, which should be also very quick to make. I have never crocheted granny squares until today. Yeah, I have crocheted squares, but I believe that's not a granny square. I think the granny square is really the, I guess, half double crochet thing. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this is the first square that I made as a test this morning. So yeah, this is one of the patterns. Yeah, this is one of the squares. So what did I do? This was my first granny square. Very happy. I was a bit confused at the start how to attach yarn, and I think I am doing it in a bit of a janky way, but it does look good in my opinion. I like the way it looks. I washed it. I blocked this and I hit my desired dimensions. So I'm gonna continue making this, and I'm very excited for this. I need so many squares. I think about like 50 or something. But yeah, very exciting. Then I wanted to talk about something that I have been wearing the past couple of days. I don't even think I have them with me at the moment. I have found them. Yes, I have what you would call, I think, arthritis gloves, pressured gloves, and this is not because I am injured, but it's because I have really cold hands. So I have a disorder that causes me to be anemic, or I just basically have chronic anemia. And one of the symptoms of anemia is that your extremities get very cold. So even if I myself am very warm. My hands are almost always cold, and that gets worse when the weather is really, really cold. And last week I was knitting a lot, and I kept on knitting despite my fingers being cold, and it started hurting so bad. And I really didn't know what to do. I first tried to use like a heating pad and put my hands in them, and once they warmed up I would start knitting again, and it was just not a great experience. And so I was thinking, maybe if I start using these arthritis gloves, these compression gloves, I think that would help, because what they do is they compress your hand slightly so that there's more blood gets pumped through your fingers, and so they stay warm. And so that has been a complete game changer for me. I don't really wear them when I'm knitting because it changes my tension and it's really hard to handle, but in general I tend to knit in 15 to 20 minute intervals. And so what I'll do is I'll just wear these just throughout the day, and then when I'm knitting I'll take them off for 20 minutes. My hands are still warm, they'll stay warm for those 20 minutes. I'll knit, then it's time for me to take my break. I'll put them back on, and it's been very very nice. So knitting has become less painful for me this winter, and I thought it would be nice to just mention that I have these gloves, because maybe there are other people out there who have a similar thing to me and haven't thought of this solution. I am still going to knit a pair of mittens, or fingerless mittens, not fingerless gloves but fingerless mittens, so that they'll come up till here, so that I might be able to still use those when I'm knitting. But yeah, for now I'm really loving these gloves. And yes, aside from the Viking yarn that I bought for my flower crochet sweater, I ended up getting some more yarn for a sweater that technically I'm knitting for myself, but it's a men's. I'm knitting it like the pattern that I'm using for this sweater seems to be designed for men, because there's just so much, there's no small sizes, and so it's going to be an oversized sort of zipper sweater for me, but then a well-fitted sweater for my boyfriend, so we can both wear these. I wear a lot of his clothes in general, which is why he wanted more sweaters, because the amount of choice that he had started dwindling. And yeah, so the pattern is Take Two by Pat Mancini, but I will first talk about the yarn, I think. So I'm mentioning the pattern because it requires 600 grams of one color, the main color, and 100 grams of the contrast color. So that's 700 grams for a sweater. And so I wanted a nice high quality yarn for an affordable price. And I generally don't watch all that many knitting podcasts, but I do occasionally watch It's a Sarah. I think most of you might already know who she is, but she is also a Dutch knitting podcaster. She does her podcasts in Dutch and English. I tend to prefer watching the Dutch ones because, I don't know, it's nice listening to a Dutch podcast. Anyway, in her latest podcast, she spoke about a woman here in the Netherlands from who she received some yarn, and this yarn comes from Spain and Portugal, I believe. Her company is called Wool uit het Zuiden, I think. So wool from the south, so South Europe. And yeah, she just has Spanish and Portuguese wool that she offers, and she had sent Sarah some of her yarn to create something from that a couple of months ago. I remember her mentioning her when she received the yarn as well. But I thought, okay, that sounds very interesting. So I checked out the website and I found that the yarn was incredibly affordable. So I ended up buying a sweater's quantity of one particular yarn. So having said that, this is the Lana's Rustica. It's Spanish wool, 100% Spanish merino wool, one ply, and the yardage is 96.5 meters per 50 grams. And this is 100 grams, and I bought this for, I think, €8, which is €4 for 50 grams, which I think is a pretty affordable yarn for also just the quality. I really like the yarn. So I use this, I want to use this for my main color, and then this as my contrasting color. So yeah, I'm gonna try and make Take Two by Pat Mancini. So I have bought the pattern already. It's a really affordable one. I believe I spent €4.80 on this one, and it's a sweater with 2 pockets and a zipper, and it's knit flat. So it's bottom up. First you knit the pockets, then you knit, I believe, the back, the back flat, the front flat, and then the arms, I believe, and then you do the collar and the zip and stuff like that. So it seemed like a really fun knit, and I am actually really excited for the final product. I think it will look really nice. I'm very excited to work on pockets because I don't think I've done that before. I'm pretty sure I've not done that before. So I think that's it for the knitting stuff, the yarns and the patterns. I wanted to talk about a book that I recently bought. So this is the Knitting Pattern Writing Handbook, How to Write Great Patterns That Knitters Will Love to Make. And this is written by Christina McGrath and Sarah Walworth. So I learned about this book through Roxanne Richardson. I think I also mentioned this in a last podcast episode. She actually had the 2 authors on her YouTube channel discussing pattern making, tech editing, and just also talking about how pattern writing has changed in the past 2 decades since more independent designers have been offering their patterns online. And yeah, this is the book that I think they basically came on to also promote the book that they wrote, because it came out, I think, at that time, around that time, and I've been eyeing it since then, and I decided to get it now that I am actually trying to learn how to write patterns and improve my understanding of knitting. So I have actually already started reading through this book. I would like to in the future give a full-on review of this book once I have finished it. It was interesting to read about how they, well, you have the introduction, I read the introduction, how they met. I already knew about that actually because of the video that I had watched before. But yes, I am still at chapter 1, Foundations of a Good Knitting Pattern, and I have just been taking notes on my computer, and at the same time I have been writing the pattern for this vest right here. I've also kind of like gone through the book and looked at all the different topics that they have in here. I also really like at the back they have measurements, standard measurements. Ooh, that's way too bright. Wait, here. They have, yeah, I think you can see it a bit. They have standard measurements for both men and women. I believe they're only for sweaters. So they have, I think, about 20. For men, they have 24 body points where they have measurements. And for women, I think 28. They also have for kids as well. And with the children, it involves also the head measurements. I don't believe that's in the book. Although, if you are interested in that, I would recommend looking at the Vogue Ultimate Knitting Guide book. I keep messing up the name, but it's something like that. It's the big Vogue knitting book. That one does contain measurements for adult head sizes. Yeah. And I would say, I mean, this is really thorough. It gives you just, I mean, it's a handbook, right? So having flipped through the book, it seems like it's hitting all the important parts of pattern making. There's also a section with common mistakes when it comes to designing, I believe, in terms of like armhole depth, and what else is there? I'm trying to find the index, but I'm not really finding it here. Oh yeah. Here, it's common sweater pitfalls. So armhole depth, necklines and shoulders, upper arm measurements, fit, things like that. I'm really interested in. A specific section I'm really interested in is grading. I have yet to figure out how to properly grade a garment. So I thought, and here you see I'm coming back to what I said I would come back to. I am looking to grade this one right here. So yeah, I'm very excited about all this, and I think I'm gonna end this week's podcast on that note. Again, thank you so much for watching, listening, supporting this channel, and I will see you soon in another video. Okay, bye bye!